Quite a fiery session that. I think it's time to just bring down the tempers a bit. And what better way to do that than have a yogi with me, someone who's not just talking about bringing peace, but also about consciousness. Let's first talk about consciousness, because this is a very fascinating panel. You know, the panel says consciousness as a governance, and I've never heard these two terms together in a single sentence in my life. Before we get into the details of it, help me understand, what is consciousness and how does one attain it?
Namaste. Namaste to each of us here. Thank you, Ashish, for having me. Now, within each is the higher self. Within each is the greater mind. And where we think from is what realities we create. Consciousness is that which essentially is the power to be better, to do greater. Now, when we apply this to ourselves, there is the transformation from the limited to the unlimited. When we apply this as collectively, it's all of humanity that benefits. When we apply this to organizations and enterprises, the whole of the ecosystem of business upgrades. So this is consciousness. And the revolution is within each of us to begin with.
Now, of course, you're here to talk about the declaration of consciousness movement. Before I get to that, one of the most interesting phrases that you mentioned is that consciousness is a human right. What do you mean by that? And just help us understand, what is this declaration of consciousness movement in a very practical way?
Declaration of consciousness is that our time has come now, when products have quality as the basis. How about belief systems having the quality parameters? Imagine when we are able to set consciousness as the parameters of our governance. Now, when we go back into the depth of our ancient civilization, India, the principle of Ahimsa, Mahatma Gandhi would say, is as old as the hill. So anyone, anywhere across the globe through history, from Plato, Socrates, Benjamin Franklin, Nelson Mandela, anyone woke up. They woke up to the principle of oneness. They woke up to the principle of Ahimsa. And this is so relevant today because the American Civil War was with consciousness. The dismantling of the apartheid in South Africa was with consciousness. Now applying it to the structure that we have here means the laws of coexistence. India has been a nation of coexistence. This is so vital and important on a global level, where we can all coexist together as one humanity, and consciousness is the platform.
No, there's a confusion here. When you say consciousness, most people think, well, you know, you need to go to the Himalayas and meditate for a few years. How do you separate that from religion? There's this confusion that's been there forever. You, of course, came up with Declaration of Consciousness movement in 2012. What is the guiding principle? What made you come up with it?
Ultimately, strip religion out. Strip religion beliefs out. Or go into the depth of every real religion, and the needs of human is the same. The very same. Everyone wants peace. Everyone wants happiness. So when we say the needs are the same, this need is one dimension that is within every one of us, But when we meditate or go inwards, we understand that ultimately there is the oneness that is humanity. So, this consciousness means awakening to one humanity that allows us to be greater than whom we are, or rather, the transformation of the human to the divine, and that is the potential within each of us. Apply that to humanity, the world will find peace. Coexistence means the principles of consciousness in place. And it is high time we recognize the very basic need for all of us to live in peace and harmony.
No, but how do we do that? We just had 4 human beings on the stage fighting for political ideology, fighting for cylinders. I mean, how do they apply it?
Declaration of consciousness is the progress of time. From the Western context, in 1210 was the Magna Carta, a journey, a progress towards a greater, better humanity. And at 1610 was the Bill of Rights to curb the tyranny of aristocracy. Then 1776 was the Declaration of Independence, freedom for a nation. Now, Declaration of Consciousness is the intrinsic, inherent right of every human across the globe, beyond religion, and the time is now.
Now, you set a very ambitious target for yourself. You say, this has to be adopted by the UN as well through a resolution. Let's talk about how much of it is adopted in India. I mean, national adoption also is a priority. How much of that has been done in India?
See, with India, the concept of Ahimsa, the concept of women's equality is always there. When we say women's equality, we revere women. Likewise, children and children protection. Likewise is respect of elders. Likewise is freedom of thought. Likewise is the unity, celebrating all paths to consciousness. Equality, righteousness, inclusivity, all of this exists as a nature of our community, of our citizens. So India has it already. So when India adopts it, it's only affirming itself as the mother of consciousness to humanity, to the world. Now, when Mahatma Gandhi and when the West was inspired with Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela, it was adored by all the nations all across the globe. When Prime Minister Modi ji gave as India's gift International Yoga Day, 119 countries adopted the International Yoga Day. The only time United Nations has ever seen such participation of all nations. The attainments of yoga is consciousness. So, humanity is ready for that, for consciousness itself.
Okay, you spoke about the Prime Minister just now. I just read somewhere that you also asked for a Nobel Peace Prize for him. And what was it based on? Was it because of conscious governance or solidarity with humanitarian values? What was it for?
Declaration of Consciousness is a non-profit based in California, USA. And we recognize 9 criteria for Prime Minister Modi ji to be cited for the Nobel Peace Prize.
9 criteria?
Yes. Like one of them was Operation Sindoor. We had the upper hand. And overnight, there was a ceasefire drawn. And the reason was to avert a major war. And this war was not just between India and Pakistan. There were other players involved that wanted India to get into a prolonged war, and Modi ji took that decision to go for the ceasefire. Now, while he did it, if you notice, he did all measures not to provoke Pakistan to fight out of its ego, including the jets. He never revealed, whether the jets were bombed or not, was destroyed or not. Why? He simply wanted to avoid war. That was a great sense of India in the application of Ahimsa principle. Likewise, in the COVID vaccine, he simply gave the COVID vaccine, and he responds and mentions to the world, we will not profit from another country's suffering. Now, like this, each criteria, but then look at it deeper from the yogic sense. From the yogic sense, he did what he did, and never once did he ever say, I need the Nobel Peace Prize, because in a yogic concept, do your dharma, but do it as dhanam. In other words, simply do what good you need to do without expecting any result.
No, but there's one leader who has done the dharma and also wants the karma. It's Donald Trump, and according to his consciousness, he also deserves it. So how do we rate it now?
There are some who are transactional, wanting temporary stability, wanting the name and recognition, and they stand as a contrast to what consciousness is about. Prime Minister Modi ji actually illustrates what a culture is about. Now, Mahatma Gandhi was not given the Nobel Peace Prize till date. So if the Nobel chooses not to give Prime Minister Modi the Nobel Peace Prize in spite of the fact that he richly deserves it, so it is. But if he does, it is the celebration of our civilization as in the bedrocks of consciousness, as a pride of all of India.
All right. There's one more thing that you've come up with. You've named it C-ness. You say this is a way to certify consciousness. Now, people would say consciousness is subjective. I might think I'm more conscious than you, and you might think so as well about me. How do you measure it?
Okay. Now, we look into the pain points of humanity. The most pressing pain point of humanity, especially an individual, is loneliness, a pandemic in the West. Likewise, lack of recognition. Likewise, inability to connect in reliability. Now, C-ness Consciousness Super App addresses the journey from loneliness to wholeness, of how each one can be a legacy, of how we can connect in reliability. Now, C-ness Works is about organizations that are certified as consciousness on a consciousness platform, and they're showcased to the world. They're recognized for whom they are. They're supported and connected to the global consciousness.
So you essentially give certifications to organizations based on how much consciousness they have?
Yes, we look into the 6 pillars of operation, like, for instance, why does a company exist? Does a company believe in the greater good? Profit, like that beyond profit. Likewise, and the most important dimension of this is like connecting the companies of consciousness to the globe. For instance, being the bridge of reliability, dependability between each other.
All right. One last question before we wrap. Your vision is one humanity, one consciousness, one shared future. Of course, a lot of people listening here were also listening about your idea of consciousness. Anything that you want them to leave today with in terms of consciousness in 30 seconds?
The time is now. It's with each one of us. Firstly, go within, light your lamp, be the master. Step out of the rat race of your karmic imprints. Awaken to whom each one of us truly are. In recognizing ourselves as to why we are here, we realize we are here for a dharma, the greater good. In today's world where we are the brinks of the Third World War, we are in a dangerous place. We each, when we connect, when we go within to connect, we connect with Source, God, Goddess. But when we connect within,
Right.
we become the collective prayers. When we are the collective prayers, we are the vortex of tapas, the vortex of where all the sages and we are one, protected, guided, and given the wisdom, the higher wisdom. And together, we can and we will be able to uplift humanity by the very nature of our thought being collective, from our leaders to the global oneness, and as one humanity, we can steer humanity to its greatness, the Satya Yuga, the time of consciousness.
Thank you. Brilliant wisdom. And I think the four panelists that were here today will of course book a session with you about consciousness and about bringing about that peace. Thank you so much for sharing all those details. A big round of applause here for Nandhji.
I think this is the best time for the entire world, not just us, the entire world, to get in a bit of peace and spirituality. Thank you so much. Appreciate you joining us. Ashish, we'd like you to felicitate with a small token of our appreciation.
A big round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen.